Well, hello there, everyone who is watching live and on replay. My name is Alan C. Paul, and I'm here to help you build a better creative life from the inside out. And today we're talking about being a forever learner. How can you become someone who never stops learning, always has creative inspiration, is always growing, is always becoming something new, and kind of recreating yourself no matter what season of life or creative, the season of creative life that you're in. So I appreciate you joining me. If you're joining me live again, go ahead and comment. Let me know you're watching. If you're watching on replay, just hit replay or say replay gang in the comments, because I am trying to get back on the horse in terms of doing these creative checkups every Friday. We've been back and forth in terms of when to do them and whether or not I have the schedule right. So I'm kind of trying to get that back together, but I appreciate you if you're watching right now. So let me get right into the comments that I wanted to make. As I am telling you or talking to you right now, we are getting into the anniversary season of God and Gigs. If you're new to our platform, I wrote a book and it's right over here behind me, God and Gigs, which is the first thing I wrote on musicians building a life of both connection with your spiritual life, your church life, and your gigging life outside the church. This platform started really actually before that, more like in 2015. I started blogging, I started writing a little bit about my experience as a musician, as someone who'd been full-time in ministry but had felt called out of that full-time work. Actually, I'm still a full-time worker in the church, but I that full-time part-time thing, we'll get into that later, but that's a whole nother issue on why we have to say this is part-time, this is full-time. To me, it's more about perspective than it is about your income. So I consider myself a full-time creative all the time, no matter where I work or where my income comes from. But at the time, I was doing ministry in terms of full-time as a music minister, and then I stepped out as a really a freelancer and a gig worker and a musician working in all kinds of different gigs, just like most of us as a local musician. And I started to write about this and try to figure out, okay, well, what is this about? And how can I have this job that seems to pull me in between both being a creative and being a Christian and working jobs sometimes and playing music that didn't really seem like I could fit them into my faith. And I found that there were a lot of other creators that are just like us. So I started writing about that in 2015, 16. My favorite person, my editor, came alongside me, Katrina Joe, also known as Poetess Katrina Joe Holder. She helped me edit the book. We did a Kickstarter around 2015 or so, and got the funds to get it published. About 87 people joined us to help get that funded so that I could make sure that it was done. And this is what happened. So this is about coming up on 5 years now that the book came out, and it blessed a whole bunch of people. There were so many people that were interviewed in that book that are still in my life today. Some unfortunately have passed on. Rest in peace, Paris Bowens. He was one of the main contributors to the book. That even now, it's amazing to think that, thank God, we have his words in print, even though he's no longer here to voice them himself. Thank God for that opportunity I had to interview him and several other creators, Greg Johnson, Dwayne Bennett, Camilo Villandia, Christian Dentley. So if you want to check out the book, obviously it's still available. So this is not about the book as much as it is about the learning I did when I wrote the book and what I had to do to become a forever learner. Because for me to step into writing, for me to step into reading, for me to step into blogging, for me to step into podcasting, all those things required me to be a learner. And if you're a creative, you are a learner. You couldn't have created what you create. You couldn't have learned the skill you have if you weren't a learner. You're by nature someone that wanted to grasp something, to make yourself better, to get a skill, to become the best at something. That's just in your nature as a creative. My question to you is, are you still learning? Are you still growing? Are you still becoming something new and growing yourself even after you've kind of mastered one of the things that you really wanted to work on? And that's my question to you is, are you a forever learner? There's a couple of ways I can find out whether you're a forever learner. And one of the ways I can figure that out is if, and by the way, I keep looking at my screen here to make sure I'm looking at the right direction because it feels like I'm like divided here between my two my camera and my screen. So there's always like one of those weird things. Why do we struggle watching ourselves? Let me do this. This will help me to feel like I'm not staring sideways. So here we go. The first thing I can tell you that will tell me if you're a forever learner is what's behind me. Is do you have a library? And I know this is old school, right? But it's true. People can tell what you are about by just looking at, do you have a bookshelf? That's a digital bookshelf, of course, but do you have a library? Do you have a, a series or a source where you have cataloged the books and the materials that have built up on your, your virtual bookshelf or whatever, more in your mind, where these are landmarks. These are things that you've learned over time and books that have meant something to you over time. And that library has consistently grown over the course of your creative career. Because I can tell you, if you are a reader, if you are constantly taking in new books, if you're constantly reading and trying to absorb new information, even if it's podcasts or videos or courses, of course that counts. But I like zeroing in on books right now because it really does create a new kind of mental space when you pick up a book and you read it, right? That's what did LeVar Burton say? Take a look, it's in a book. You've got to think about the fact that you are really opening yourself up to other people's perspectives when you are a reader. Now, of course, I'm going to preach reading because I wrote books and I write books, and it was books that gave me the ability to write books. So when I first wrote God and Gigs, I have one book right down here. That was one of the key books that I used as an inspiration. It's called The Savvy Musician, and it is still in print as far as I know. And the print of this book, or the promise of this book, is building a career, earning a living, and making a difference. It's by David Cutler. I talked about this on the podcast recently on episode 127. And this book really gave me kind of like almost like a template. You can see where I even made all my marks. They're still here all these years later. And so the key of each one of these books that really inspired me, another one is over here, as I should have put them in front of me where I had to lean up. Another one is here, The Gift of Art, which is out of print, actually. I couldn't find it. But the author, Jean Edward Veith, I actually found this author as a part of my homeschooling journey with my children. And they were reading about art and the Bible. And I found this author. And then I found this other book by the same author. And this one, again, is not in print, but you can find it if you can in libraries. And this one really opened my eyes to the way that scripture works with art and explains art. And had I not read this and read this one, other The Savvy Musician, and there's so many other books that have impressed me. I can think all the way back to my young days. I used to read the Hardy Boys and Adventure series and more fiction. One of my favorite books back in that day was called Jonathan Livingston Seagull. Very inspirational book. I still remember the cover of it. And those things open up my imagination. And of course, you got to talk about books about music, obviously, and books about creative life. All those things combine to create this imagination and spur on your imagination. So you got to become a reader if you want to be a forever learner, because even though a lot of this information is becoming digitized and you have YouTube and you have all these other things, if you are constantly allowing yourself to be open to books, be open to new ideas, to be open to the sitting down, and then I guess the process is really important, right? Reading as a process is just, the amount of time to sit down, take away the distractions. You can't like have your video on and everything else. When you're reading, you've got to focus. You got to take notes. I heard somebody say it like this: a short pencil is better than a long memory. And so it's so important to take notes when you're reading these things. And I have so many other books that I have actually on the blog. By the way, I see you, Precious. Good to see you. My coach, is great to see you there. Awesome to see you joining us. And Precious is one of our God and Gigs 360 members. Talk about people who are joining together and growing together. So that's a wonderful addition to see her in the house. Thanks for joining me. So yeah, I also wonder if there's any books, Precious, that you have read that have become like really, really important to you, even if you read them back in school, or it could have been about, anything, but it kind of opened your mind and it kind of made you really realize that you need to keep learning. Because I want to kind of like continue to expand my list of books I would recommend to all of us creatives so that you have something that's going to keep you forever learning. So that's the first thing is your library. I really, really would encourage you. If you don't have a library, if you don't have books that you can kind of say, hey, here's the 10 books that I want to go back to that I read over and over again. Obviously, the Bible is going to be one of those for 99.9% of us who are Christians. We should be reading the Bible every day, but I'm kind of talking more about inspirational information, anything that would help you to grow as a person that is written down. I'm telling you that I don't have the stats, but I know there is some stat that says that 90% of the millionaires, I don't know what the stat is, but it's most people that are successful, you can go back and see that they are also readers. That is just part of what people who are successful and growing and forever learners do. And let me see, Precious says, I don't read now self-help books. Okay. You do. I read a lot of self-help books. Okay. And Tobias, our bro Tobias, puts us on good music biz books. Yes, the music biz book, the one I just mentioned was this one, the Savvy Musician. But another one that I have, I wish I could have grabbed just all of them, and just had a big stack so you could see them. But another one that I know that a lot of people read is it's really hard to read, but it's important to read it. Is This Business of Music. It's huge. But I had to go back and it's kind of like an encyclopedia of all the music business. And you might think to yourself, okay, well, the music business has changed, but a lot hasn't. The basic principles of the music business and the creative business have not changed. And even if something is out of date necessarily, the principles behind it, you can understand how we got to this point. So I definitely suggest a lot of those music books like that. And I also want to say the second thing about being a forever learner is being open to new ideas from other people. Now, this is a little bit tougher because as artists, we are often encouraged to be independent. So we don't want to borrow ideas too much from other people. We don't want to become somebody else in terms of a copycat. That's not what I'm talking about. As a matter of fact, last week I talked about originality and not being a copycat. But what I do think of being a forever learner requires of creatives is never thinking that we know it all, never thinking that our perspective is the only perspective. And in order to be a forever learner, you got to stay in a community of other learners. If you're around people who kind of feel like they just get it and they don't think outside of that, then you got to get a new circle. You got to get around people who are just as hungry for information. I think about my friend Theory down here in Miami. Theory Dijon, we interviewed him, I want to say in episode 32. I'm going to find his interview. Sorry, I know I shouldn't be doing this while I'm talking. I should be actually talking to the camera and not typing. But I really want to find his interview. I think it's 32. Anyway, Theory is my example of a forever learner. He loves to learn. He's constantly growing. He's constantly telling me about new things. And every time I'm around Theory, I really do feel like I grow. I grow because he's learning and he's always talking about something interesting. So I want to learn about that thing that's interesting, even though I had no clue about it. I want to figure out what he's learning and I want to grow from him. So my question to you is, if you're watching this right now and if you're on replay, who is your forever learner buddy, partner? Who's learning alongside you? Who's like always challenging you with an idea? Who in your creative circle is always saying, well, what about this? Wait, have you heard this guy? Have you listened to this? Have you followed this? Have you heard this idea? Because if you don't have learners around you, then most likely you're not really growing and learning as much as you could. Because even if you are a learner yourself, if you don't have other people kind of challenging you and pushing you as a creative, you're going to find yourself very myopic, very stuck in your own way without even realizing it. And I don't say stuck in your own way in a mean way. I mean that you get stuck in your own way because you're not looking around to see what other people are thinking. And we just get normally kind of just stuck in our perspective, right? You don't realize you have a blind spot until somebody else points you out. Let me see who else is joining us, by the way. Facebook user, I can't see because the my app does not allow me to see names. So if you are on the Facebook community, just say, hey, this is blank, because I hate that because I can't see your names and I don't want to try to divide myself. But if you are posting from the community, just say who you are, and then I can put your name up and I'll know who is waving at me right now. I'm going to wave back. So those are the two things right there that I really want to impress upon my entire community. Everybody, you got to be forever learning. You got to get some books in your life, okay? And by the way, when I say books, I do include kind of just podcasts. I'm a big podcast listener. Matter of fact, I was just listening to a podcast today called That Sounds Fun. It's a big podcast. Johnny Swim was on there. Hey, Tyrone, great to see you, brother. Yeah, it has been a long time. That's awesome. Thanks so much for joining us, bro. So, yeah, we're talking about podcasts. We're talking about anything that is a learning tool. So obviously video and YouTube and courses now, that's super huge. Everybody is doing that nowadays. Let me just put this over here where everybody can see. Let's see if I can get this right. Chat overlay, and of course I'm playing around with the numbers and the things. I don't know if it's showing everything. Okay, never mind, it's not working the way I want it to work. But anyway, good to see you guys. So here's what we want to do. Get rid of that. All right, so I want to see what you guys are learning. What are the things that are inspiring and challenging you to be forever learners? Like, what's something in the last 2 months, 1 month, even during the pandemic? Didn't we all realize how important it was to learn during the pandemic, during the lockdown? Didn't a lot of us say, you know what, I might as well pick up this new skill? My skill, doing what I'm doing right now, took off. Live streaming. I didn't know how to use a Restream. I didn't have a lot of these skills. And all of a sudden it's like, whoa, I better figure this out. Let me start from ground zero. And let me say this too. Those of you who are listening and watching and you are like me, maybe you are, you're the opposite of me. You've learned like 3 or 4 instruments. You're good at a million different things because you're not scared to start from zero. Me, I've had a struggle with instruments starting from zero, being a forever learner and going back and learning a new instrument. Have any of you guys been like just one of those people that don't mind going back to zero, don't mind being a beginner? You don't mind, because I struggle with being a beginner and being a musician beginner, because I feel like I played piano, I know piano. So now I got to go back and learn guitar, and I got to start from the get-go. I got to start from drums and start from the get-go and sound like an amateur again. If that's you and you don't struggle with that, put a a yes if you don't struggle, or a no, I do struggle. Okay, so if you're that kind of person that can start from zero, just say yes. That's me. I can start from zero. I'm a beginner. If you're more like me, and you have struggle starting from the beginning, hit no. Say, hey, no, I struggle to start over. I struggle to be a beginner, because there's no way to be a learner without being a beginner. And that's probably where there's certain areas where I do struggle to start over, as I just mentioned, in music. I've started a little bit of piano. I started a little bit of guitar, and a little, I played low brass in my younger days, but that did not, I got really, really good. I got enough to get into, a band in school, but that was the only other instrument I played. So all the instruments, rhythm instruments, I was never able to restart it. Maybe I should start. Okay, so Precious says he struggles. Okay, good. You guys are with me. So you're not, I'm not the only one. Okay, I'm not the only one. Thank God, because I thought it was just me. Okay, so good. Precious got some books for us. Okay, Hustle Harder, Hustle Smarter, 50 Cent. I needed to look at that. Oh, okay. I love these. Okay, I'm going to put these up, Precious, because these are really good. I'm so glad we're recording. All right, so I'm going to write those down. All right, some Hustle Harder. I did look at that. I don't think I ever picked it up. Hurricanes, Rick Ross. I need to check that out. And it's God's Creative Power, Charles Capps. Okay, so you are definitely one of me, like me. Here, I hadn't even put some of my favorites in. I mentioned some of them, but some of the ones I've read this year, has been Profit First. I got to get some links for these. Yeah, you guys, I'm going to be typing in like a madman now, because I'm going to be trying to find these books and give you guys some of these. Profit First is a business book that made a big difference in my life in the last few days, because I've revamped my entire business and personal finance structure based on this book. So I didn't put this link. These, by the way, these are links. Whoops, that's not right. These are links that are affiliate links, by the way, because I am Amazon affiliate. I don't want you guys to think that I am trying to get you to buy stuff, but that is the one to profit first I just put up. That one is a big change for me in terms of my finances. It re-taught me. I started from the beginning and just redid all of my finances, my budgeting, everything. Another one. Let me think of another one that I've read this year. Gosh, there's so many. Start with why. Let me put that one too. Start with why. I just finished that one. And that also has made a huge difference in my mindset. It talks about why you do things. Everything I'm doing now, I'm trying to start with why. Why does it matter to me? Why is this really, trying to put that into words? And so I really love this book, so I'd highly recommend that one. These are just two of the ones I've started this year. Here we go. All right, so those are two. I don't know if you can click on those, but at least they kind of show, yeah, you should be able to click on them based on where you are. Okay, so that is really, really where I'm at. I'm at where I'm trying to become a learner all over again. Finances, I'm relearning, starting all over, redoing my finances. Music, live streaming, all of that stuff. I'm trying to go back. I'm trying to relearn some things. I don't want to sound the same that I sounded 3 weeks ago or 3 years ago. I want to sound different. I want to open my mind to new things. And so that requires me becoming a beginner again. So Tyrone, Precious, thanks for that. The affiliate links. Yeah, those. We'll talk about that in 360. That's a great. Remind me, Precious, to talk about affiliate links in 360. That's it's a real thing. It's like $2, $3 showing up in my bank account and I didn't do anything. Like I was like, wait, what? This person bought a lawnmower and I got credit. It's a thing. It's definitely a thing we need to talk about in 360. So yeah, that's my creative checkup for you guys. If anybody's got any questions, I'm going to hang on for a little while. I got to get ready for a rehearsal in a second, but I love this conversation. I hope that you are been inspired to be a forever learner. Don't get stuck. Don't get into the place where you think, oh, all I have to do is just learn about this thing. You know what? Even learning about a whole nother field just to exercise your mind, just to grow yourself. One of the chapters in my book is challenge yourself to grow. And to me, that means not just being a musician, a creative, an artist. It means growing in any phase of your life and just picking up a book or picking up a podcast and saying, I don't know what this is about, but I'm going to learn it. It's physics. I don't know. It's science. It's botany. It's, learning more about the ocean. It's learning about architecture. Just learning to learn, just enjoying the ideas that are flowing into your mind. And I think that actually grows the rest of your mind. You might be having a creative struggle, but by becoming a learner in another area, it can suddenly tie a link to, wait, now my brain is thinking of new things. I've opened up my brain to actually absorbing new information, and all of a sudden something that was a block in a song that you couldn't think of anything and the line wasn't working and you didn't know what else, but you went and worked on something else totally different, and that part of your brain starts to work again. I believe that's also part of The Artist's Way. Another great book, The Artist's Way, talks about that, about opening up to different experiences to help you grow in your artist journey so that you're not just simply stuck in that writer's block. You start learning about something else and it allows you to start thinking freely and creatively again. So those are just some tips that I want to give you in terms of being a forever learner. I hope that was helpful for you guys. Precious, Tyrone jumped in, and then anybody else that jumped in the meantime. If you are watching later, by the way, if you're watching this later, go ahead and hit replay, or say hit replay, but go ahead and type replay so I know you watched it later, and that way you can participate in the discussion as well, because I know a lot of people can't jump in the middle on a Friday if you're at work or anything like that. Speaking of work, speaking of people watching and learning forever, there has been a big push in the last few months, a big to do about people leaving their jobs and deciding to, because of the whole remote and the pandemic economy, about people not going back to their jobs. And actually they called it the Great Resignation. I did a podcast about this a little earlier, and I am trying to help as many people as I can who are considering leaving and going into full-time creative work. I have a free resource that it's always been available, but I want to remind those of you who are watching for the first time and maybe you didn't know this existed. It's called The Four Things You Must Know, the Four Questions You Must Ask Before Going Pro. It's a workbook that's free for anyone. And I would highly encourage you, if you are one of those people who is thinking about maybe leaving your full time job and going back to, let me put that in, and going into full time creative work, this is a resource that will help you because I kind of answer the questions. First, I tell you the questions you think you're asking, and then the questions you need to ask, and then help you answer those questions so that you are not jumping in where you feel like you have no idea how can I make the transition from doing a 9 to 5 to doing full-time creative work. So it helps you bridge that gap. It's free. All you gotta do is go in there, send your email address so I can send it to you, and godandgigs.com/questions is where you get that. Precious says, thanks for this. I'm looking for a next call, live streaming, pop-up events, and profiting from virtual concerts is a definite focus of mine. Yes, exactly. I can't wait to see you. Oh, and let me tell everybody about what Precious is talking about. I forgot about that. We are in our 360 membership together, and Precious and I and the rest of the people who are in 360 is a group of highly motivated creatives who want to get out of their own way and start building a completely confident creative life. And that's really what we do there. We have member calls, we have classes, we have a live stream course. I have other courses that are coming up, and it teaches all of us how we can bounce these ideas off of each other, but in an even more connected and authentic way where we are really helping each other grow as creatives. If you want to check that out, you can go to godandgigs.com/free trial. And that's how you get into God and Gigs 360. Okay, there's a free trial there, and there's always an availability for you to check out the program before you commit. But once you commit, you're one of us, and you get to do what Precious is talking about right now. Let me just put that out because I wanted to make sure everybody can see what we're talking about. Where is that? I wanted to do it the other way, and I couldn't do it the other way. I could never figure out because it wasn't working. Oh well, no biggie. Let's put it back where it was. So everybody, thank you so much for watching. I got to get ready for a rehearsal coming up with my friend Lisa, who is another forever learner. Lisa, if you're watching this later, I am going to be ready for rehearsal. But I wanted to do this while I had the chance and talk to everyone and get back to doing our Facebook and YouTube creative checkups at least once a week. You guys deserve it, and we should be connecting as much as possible. And again, for those of you who are watching a little later, because you can't jump in on a Friday in the middle of the day, I totally get it. But this is for you too. So why don't you post and tell me, what have you been learning lately? What is your light bulb, new thing that you learned? What's the book that has encouraged you lately? What's the thing that we could help you learn? What is something that I say I need help learning? I don't know. Email. I need help learning how to market myself. I need help learning how to handle, working with a church. I need help learning how to kind of work with my relationships. Any of these things, if I don't have the answer, we're going to find a book or a resource that can help answer that. That's really what we're all about in this community. We help you find the answers either from the people or the resources. And I am definitely not the expert. I'm learning alongside you. It's a community of learners. So I really, really appreciate the kind of people that are alongside with us. Let me see this. Tyrone says, new thing coming this fall. Very cool, man. Yes, I want to hear from you. I want to know what's going on in your world, man. Thank you so much for being a part of our community for so long, being faithful. And now that you're back, we're going to love to see what's going on with you, man. So, all right. So, yeah, make sure that you check out godandgigs.com/free trial. If you want to check out what Precious and I are doing in God and Gigs 360. And if you are interested in getting that free resource about questions about becoming a full-time creative, to find out the questions you need to answer versus the questions you think you need to answer, because there's a big difference. I love this quote by Andy Andrews, another author that inspired me. The quality of your answers will be determined by the quality of your questions. And so if you're asking the wrong questions, it doesn't matter what answers you get when it comes to becoming a full-time creative, pursuing your God-given gift. You're going to get the wrong answers because you're going up the wrong wall. You're not asking what really needs to be asked so that you have an idea of what the answer is before you go full-time. So that resource, I can't recommend it enough. It's been downloaded hundreds of times, and every time somebody downloads it, I find out that they have been encouraged by the information and asking the right questions, because I think God might be calling you out. God is calling out creatives, especially in times like this when so much is uncertain. He can give you the source and the ability to do what you're doing for love and do it for a living, but you got to ask the right questions. So that's the source for that workbook. Okay. Thank you guys. I got to run and get ready for this rehearsal. Glad we got 30 minutes in. And I will see you guys next Friday. I will try to keep it consistent as close as I can to 2 o'clock so that we don't get bounced around, and then at least you'll know when to sign in. Make sure you're following us on YouTube. If you're doing the YouTube thing, subscribe to the channel, please. And then if you're on Facebook, please like our pages so that we can stay in touch, and put the notification link. That's really important. Notifications. Make sure you go up there and type the thing where it says what kind of notifications you want. So that way, every time we go live, which is not every week, and don't worry, it won't be spammed, but you'll know when we have new material coming out. Okay, God bless you guys. Hope you check out the podcast. Everything out that's going on God and Gigs, just check it out on our website and you'll find it all. Okay, God bless you guys. Precious, Tyrone, everybody else that checked in. See you guys later. Everybody else that's watching on replay, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next week.